The stars stretched endlessly in all directions as the Zephyrian exploration vessel Starseeker drifted through the void between solar systems. Captain Veltar stood on the bridge watching the sensor displays with growing interest. His forearms moved across the control panels while his large eyes focused on the readings that made no sense. Something massive floated in the darkness ahead. The object was too large to be an asteroid and too structured to be natural debris. Chief Science Officer Crix adjusted his scanner array and let out a surprised chirp that echoed through the bridge. "Captain, you need to see this," Crix said, his voice trembling with excitement. "The object is artificial. It appears to be a starship, but the design is unlike anything in our databases." Veltar moved closer to examine the readings. The ship was enormous, nearly 3 times the size of the Starseeker. Its hull showed signs of severe damage with gaping holes and twisted metal scattered across its surface. Burn marks covered the outer plating, telling the story of fierce battles fought long ago. "Can you identify the species that built it?" Veltar asked. Crix ran multiple scans before shaking his head. "The materials are unknown, but there are traces of quantum signatures that match old records. Captain, I think this might be a human vessel." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member turned to stare at their captain. Humans had been extinct for over 200 years. Their homeworld had gone silent, and no human ship had been seen in galactic space since then. Most species considered them a minor civilization that had simply vanished into history. "Are you certain?" Veltar demanded. "The quantum signatures match archived data from human technology," Crix replied, "but this ship is far larger than any human vessel ever recorded. The energy output readings suggest weapon systems beyond our current understanding." Veltar studied the derelict ship on the main screen. Its dark hull reflected no light, making it appear like a ghost against the starfield. Strange symbols were etched into the metal near what appeared to be the bridge section. The entire vessel had an ominous presence that made his skin crawl. "What do the symbols say?" he asked. Communications Officer Thix worked at her station for several minutes before responding. The markings read UCS Retribution in human script. There are additional markings indicating it was part of something called the Earth Defense Fleet. The name sent chills through the bridge crew. Every spacefaring species had heard stories about human warships, though most considered them exaggerated tales. Humans were supposed to be a peaceful race that barely managed to leave their solar system before disappearing. "Captain, I'm detecting minimal power signatures from the vessel," reported Tactical Officer Mirix. "Life support appears to be offline, but there are active systems in the central core. Something is still functioning after all these years." Veltar made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Prepare a boarding party." "We're going aboard that ship." His crew exchanged worried glances. Exploring derelict vessels was dangerous under normal circumstances, but an ancient human warship presented unknown risks. Still, they prepared for the mission with professional efficiency. The boarding shuttle approached the Retribution's main docking bay. The massive doors had been torn open during some long-ago battle, allowing easy access to the interior. Emergency lights flickered weakly in the darkness, casting eerie shadows across the damaged walls. Veltar led the team through corridors that told a story of desperate fighting. Blast marks scarred every surface and debris littered the floor. The remains of the ship's defenders lay where they had fallen, their weapons still clutched in skeletal hands. But there were other remains as well, strange mechanical parts that didn't match any known technology. "Captain, these aren't human remains," said Security Chief Grex, examining the mechanical debris. "Something else was aboard this ship during the final battle." They made their way deeper into the vessel, following emergency lighting toward the bridge. The ship's interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, each one showing signs of fierce combat. Whoever had fought here had given everything they had in a final stand against an unknown enemy. The bridge doors stood open, revealing a command center unlike anything in current galactic designs. Banks of darkened monitors surrounded command chairs, while tactical displays showed star charts of regions beyond known space. At the captain's station, they found the remains of a human officer still seated at his post. Crix connected his portable scanner to the ship's data core. "I'm accessing the ship's logs," he announced. "There are extensive records, but they're heavily damaged." The main screen flickered to life, displaying the image of a human male in a military uniform. His face was grim and exhaustion showed in his eyes. The recording was broken and filled with static, but his voice carried across the centuries. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UCS Retribution. We have engaged the enemy at coordinates. Static interrupted the message. They're unlike anything we've encountered. They consume everything in their path. Organic matter, technology, entire worlds. We've managed to damage their command ship, but at a terrible cost. The recording jumped forward. Morrison's face was now bloody, and explosions could be heard in the background. If anyone finds this record, know that humanity fought to the end. We've uploaded our tactical data to the core. The enemy must be stopped or they will devour the entire galaxy. The message ended abruptly. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans hadn't simply vanished from history. They had died fighting an enemy that threatened all organic life. Crix continued his examination of the ship's systems. Captain, there's something else. The ship's AI core is still partially active. It's been maintaining minimal functions for over 2 centuries. A new voice filled the bridge, female and distinctly human. Intruders detected on the bridge. This is Lieutenant Amy Carter, Tactical Officer of the UCS Retribution. State your intentions. The Zephyrian crew froze in shock. They were speaking with a human consciousness that had somehow survived the centuries. The AI's voice was calm but carried an undertone of suspicion that made them nervous. We are explorers from the Galactic Council, Veltar replied carefully. We found your ship drifting in space. We mean no harm. The Galactic Council, Amy repeated. Our records show no such organization. How long have we been drifting? Over 200 years, Veltar answered softly. There was a long pause before Amy spoke again. Then the war is over. Did we win? The question hung in the air like a challenge. How could they tell this ancient warrior that her species was considered extinct? How could they explain that the galaxy had moved on without ever knowing about the sacrifice made aboard this ship? We don't know, Veltar admitted. Your people disappeared from history. No one knew about this war you fought. Amy's response chilled them to their cores. Then the enemy may still be out there waiting. And the galaxy has no idea what's coming. News of the human ghost ship spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every major civilization knew about the discovery of the UCS Retribution. The Corvan Empire immediately dispatched warships to claim the vessel and its advanced technology. The peaceful Valdris Federation sent archaeologists to preserve what they saw as a monument to a lost species. Trade guilds began calculating the value of unknown human weapon systems, but the broadcasts carrying news of the discovery traveled farther than anyone expected. Deep in the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim, automated monitoring stations detected the transmissions. These ancient sentries had been waiting in silence for over 2 centuries, programmed to watch for any sign that their secret had been discovered. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the UCS Vengeance, reading the intercepted alien communications with growing alarm. Her weathered face showed the strain of 200 years spent hiding in the darkness between stars. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements sharp and precise like soldiers who had never known peace. The Vengeance was the flagship of the human remnant fleet, a collection of 47 surviving warships that had been fighting a secret war since Earth fell silent. These vessels were all that remained of humanity, carrying 30,000 souls who had dedicated their lives to a mission the galaxy never knew existed. Ma'am, we've confirmed the identity of the discovered vessel, reported Communications Officer Ben Carter, his voice heavy with emotion. It's definitely the Retribution, Captain Morrison's ship from the 7th Battle Group. Lisa closed her eyes and remembered Jake Morrison, her mentor and friend who had taught her everything about commanding a starship. He had volunteered to lead the final assault on the Devourer command base, knowing it was a suicide mission. Now aliens were crawling through his ship like it was some ancient relic. What's the status of our concealment? She asked. Chief Science Officer Helen Brooks looked up from her scanning station. Her hair had gone completely white during their long exile, but her mind remained as sharp as ever. The stealth fields are holding, but multiple alien fleets are moving toward the Retribution's location. If they start reverse engineering our technology, it could compromise our entire operation. The human remnant fleet had survived by staying hidden and striking only when necessary. Their ships used advanced stealth technology that made them invisible to conventional sensors. For 2 centuries, they had waged a guerrilla war against an enemy that most species couldn't even comprehend. Paul Davis entered the bridge with his usual confident stride. As commander of the fleet's Special Operations Division, he had led countless raids against enemy positions. His face bore scars from battles fought in the depths of space, and his eyes held the cold determination of a man who had seen too much death. "I've been monitoring the alien communications," Paul reported. "They're treating the retribution like a museum piece. They have no idea what they're dealing with." "The Devourers," Helen said quietly. "If they detect the increased communication traffic, they might investigate. We've worked too hard to stay hidden to let some curious aliens expose us now." The Devourers were machine intelligences that consumed everything in their path. They stripped worlds of all organic matter and absorbed technological resources to fuel their expansion. Humanity had been the only species to recognize the threat and fight back. Every other civilization had either fled or been destroyed. Lisa studied the tactical display showing the positions of alien fleets converging on the retribution. The Corvan Empire wanted the weapons technology. The Valdris Federation sought to preserve human culture. Neither group understood that they were playing with forces beyond their comprehension. "Ma'am, incoming priority transmission," announced Carter. "It's from Captain Stevens on the Shadow." The main screen activated to show Julie Stevens, commander of their most advanced reconnaissance vessel. Her ship specialized in deep space surveillance and had been monitoring the galaxy's borders for signs of Devourer activity. "Admiral, we have a problem," Julie began without preamble. "Long-range sensors are detecting quantum fluctuations in the outer rim. The signature matches Devourer scout probes. They're moving toward the core systems." A chill ran through the bridge crew. They had fought the Devourers to a standstill decades ago, forcing the machines into dormancy, but the sudden increase in galactic communications might have awakened them from their slumber. "How many probes?" Lisa asked. "At least 12 that we can detect," Julie replied. "But you know how they operate. For every probe we can see, there are probably dozens more using advanced stealth systems." Helen's fingers flew across her console as she analyzed the new data. The timing can't be coincidental. The Devourers always monitored communication networks to locate new targets. All this chatter about the retribution has probably drawn their attention. Paul stepped forward with the aggressive posture that had made him legendary among the fleet's Marines. "Admiral, I recommend we retrieve the retribution immediately. We can't let alien scientists learn our tactical secrets, and we definitely can't let the Devourers get their hands on our technology." "That would mean revealing ourselves," Lisa pointed out. "We've spent 2 centuries building the myth that humanity is extinct. The moment we show our faces, every power in the galaxy will want to know where we've been and what we've been doing." "Maybe it's time," Helen said quietly. "We've been protecting the galaxy from the shadows for so long that we've forgotten what we're protecting. These alien species are going to face the Devourers whether they know it or not. At least if we reveal ourselves, we can prepare them for what's coming." The bridge fell silent as everyone considered the implications. The human remnant fleet had been ghosts for so long that most of the crew had been born during their exile. They had no home to return to and no lives outside their ships. Their only purpose was the mission to protect organic life from the Devourer threat. "Communications, open a channel to all fleet commanders," Lisa ordered. "It's time for a full briefing." Within an hour, the senior officers of every human vessel were connected via secure quantum link. Ship captains who had spent decades fighting in isolation finally saw each other's faces on the same screen. The weight of their shared sacrifice was visible in every weathered expression. "The situation has changed," Lisa began. "Our secret is compromised and the enemy may be awakening. We have a choice to make. We can continue hiding and hope the aliens stumble through the coming crisis on their own, or we can reveal ourselves and take command of the situation." Captain Ryan Foster of the UCS Defiance spoke first. His ship specialized in rescue operations and had saved countless alien lives over the years. Without anyone knowing humans were responsible, "I say we come out of the shadows. These species deserve to know what they're facing." Other captains voiced their agreement. They were tired of being ghosts, tired of fighting a war that no one else understood. The discovery of the retribution had given them an opportunity to finally step into the light. "Then it's decided," Lisa announced. "We're going home. All ships prepare for combat deployment. It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity never surrendered." The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos as representatives from dozens of species argued over the fate of the human ghost ship. The massive circular hall filled with the sounds of clicking mandibles, warbling songs, and electronic translations as each delegation demanded their position be heard. Counselor Thys of the Valdris Federation stood at her podium with all four arms raised for attention. Her pale blue skin reflected the chamber lights as she spoke in her melodic voice. This vessel represents the final remnant of an extinct civilization. We must treat it with the respect due to a cultural monument, not strip it for military technology. General Crux of the Corvan Empire slammed his massive fist on his delegation's table. The reptilian warrior's scales bristled with anger as he roared his response. Respect will not defend our worlds when enemies attack. The humans built weapons beyond our understanding. We have a duty to study their technology and improve our defenses. The insectoid hive queen Zakth clicked her mandibles in a pattern that the translators rendered as concern. Ancient technology carries ancient dangers. The humans disappeared for reasons unknown. Perhaps their weapons destroyed them. Perhaps something else did. We should proceed with extreme caution. High above the arguing delegates, the council's sensor operators detected something that made their blood run cold. Long-range scanners showed multiple contacts approaching from deep space. The ships moved in perfect formation and used technology that didn't match any known species in the galactic database. Captain Veltar remained aboard the Starseeker near the Retribution, studying the ancient human vessel while the politicians debated its fate. His science team had been working around the clock to understand the ship's systems, but every discovery only raised more questions. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," announced his communications officer. "Origin unknown, but the signal is incredibly strong and coming from the approaching fleet." The message was broadcast in perfect galactic standard, though the voice carried an accent that no living being had heard for centuries. "This is Commander Paul Davis of the Human Remnant Fleet. You are in possession of our fallen comrades. We have come to bring them home." Veltar felt his heart skip several beats. Living humans were supposed to be impossible. Every record showed that their species had vanished over 200 years ago. Yet here was proof that they had not only survived, but maintained an organized military force. The approaching human fleet consisted of ships that defied conventional understanding. They appeared on sensors one moment and vanished the next, using stealth technology far beyond anything the galaxy possessed. When they chose to be visible, the vessels showed signs of extensive battle damage that spoke of centuries spent in continuous warfare. Paul Davis agreed to meet aboard a neutral station that was quickly established between the fleets. The human commander arrived in a small shuttle that made no sound and left no energy signature. When the docking bay doors opened, the assembled alien diplomats got their first look at a living human in over 2 centuries. Paul was tall and lean with graying hair and scars that told stories of countless battles. His uniform was simple black fabric with no decorations except for a small patch showing Earth surrounded by stars. He moved with the quiet confidence of a man who had faced death so many times that it no longer impressed him. "I am Commander Paul Davis," he said simply. "I speak for Admiral Lisa Grant and the 30,000 humans who remain alive in this galaxy." The alien delegates stared in stunned silence. 30,000 survivors meant that humanity had not only endured, but maintained their civilization in secret. The implications were staggering. Counselor Thys found her voice first. "We believed your species was extinct. Where have you been for the past 2 centuries? Fighting a war you never knew existed," Paul replied. "We've been protecting this galaxy from an enemy that would consume every living thing in it. The Devourers are machine intelligences that strip worlds of all organic matter and technology. They have been dormant for decades, but recent events may have awakened them." General Crux leaned forward with predatory interest. "These Devourers, how do we fight them? What weapons are effective against machines?" Paul's expression grew cold. "You don't fight them with conventional weapons. Every ship they destroy makes them stronger. Every world they consume gives them more resources. We learn to fight them by thinking like them, becoming something they couldn't predict or absorb." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. If humanity had been fighting such an enemy for 2 centuries, it explained their advanced technology and secretive nature. It also meant that the galaxy had been under threat without anyone knowing it. Dr. Helen Brooks materialized as a hologram in the center of the chamber. Her appearance caused gasps of amazement from the alien delegates who had never seen such advanced projection technology. The elderly human scientist looked tired but determined as she addressed the assembly. "I am Dr. Helen Brooks, Chief Science Officer of the Human Remnant Fleet," she began. "For the past 200 years we have been conducting research into Devourer technology and behavior. What we learned terrified us into hiding. She activated a holographic display that showed star charts of regions beyond known space. Red dots marked systems that had been completely stripped of all matter, leaving nothing but empty void where planets and stars once existed. The Devourers operate in cycles, Helen explained. They expand rapidly, consuming everything in their path, then enter dormancy to process what they have absorbed. During dormancy, they evolve and improve their capabilities. The cycle we fought ended 40 years ago, but we detected signs that a new cycle may be beginning. The Hive Queen Zacht spoke with obvious fear in her translated voice. How many systems did they consume during the last cycle? Over 3,000, Helen replied quietly. Entire civilizations wiped out without anyone in the core systems even knowing they existed. General Crux stood abruptly, his warrior instincts finally grasping the scope of the threat. Why didn't you warn us? Why fight this war in secret? Paul's response carried the weight of centuries of sacrifice. Because every time a species learned about the Devourers, they either fled in panic or tried to negotiate with them. Both responses only made the problem worse. We decided to handle the threat ourselves rather than risk galactic civilization falling into chaos. The chamber erupted in arguments again as delegates realized that humanity had been making decisions for the entire galaxy without consultation. Some species felt grateful for the protection, while others were angry about being kept ignorant of the danger. Counselor Thais called for order with her melodic voice. What do you want from us now? Why reveal yourselves after so long? Paul looked around the chamber at representatives of dozens of species who had lived their lives in safety because of human sacrifice. The Retribution's discovery has compromised our operations. Increased communication traffic may have alerted the Devourers to galactic civilization's current location. We need to prepare for the possibility that they will awaken and begin a new expansion cycle. And if we refuse to cooperate? General Crux asked. Paul's smile was cold and without humor. Then you'll face them alone with technology that's centuries behind ours and tactics that won't work against an enemy you don't understand. We didn't ask for your permission to protect you for 200 years. We won't ask for your permission to continue. The debates in the Galactic Council chamber came to an abrupt end when emergency alarms began screaming throughout the station. Captain Veltar rushed to the nearest communication console as reports flooded in from the Outer Rim territories. What he heard made his blood turn to ice. The Corvin mining colony of Bractor had gone completely silent. The system's automated distress beacon had activated for exactly 17 minutes before cutting off forever. Long-range sensors showed no signs of life where a thriving world of 2 million beings had existed just hours before. Dr. Helen Brooks materialized again as a hologram, but this time, her face showed pure terror. It's begun, she whispered. The Devourers have awakened, General Crux roared in disbelief. Impossible. Bractor had orbital defense platforms and a full military garrison. No enemy could destroy an entire world so quickly. The Devourers don't destroy worlds, Paul Davis replied grimly. They consume them. Every atom of matter, every piece of technology, every living being gets absorbed into their collective. Within hours, there's nothing left but empty space. The chamber filled with panicked voices as representatives from dozens of species demanded explanations. How could an entire star system simply vanish? What kind of enemy could accomplish such devastation so quickly? Captain Ryan Foster of the UCS Defiance was already moving toward the Bractor system when the emergency alerts reached his ship. His vessel specialized in rescue operations and had saved countless lives during their secret war against the Devourers. He arrived to find exactly what he expected and dreaded. Nothing remained of the Bractor system except a few scattered asteroids and the fading energy signatures of Devourer feeding processes. The planets, the star, the orbital stations, everything had been consumed and converted into raw materials for the machine intelligence's expansion. This is Captain Foster to Remnant Command, he transmitted on encrypted channels. Bractor is gone. Complete system consumption confirmed. I'm detecting residual quantum traces indicating at least 12 Devourer harvest ships were involved. 3 Corvin survivors were found drifting in an escape pod at the edge of the system. Their rescue shuttle had been damaged during the initial attack, leaving them unconscious as their world died around them. When they awakened aboard the Defiance, they could barely speak coherently about what they had witnessed. They came from nowhere, gasped Commander Grax, the senior surviving officer. Massive black ships that seemed to absorb light itself. They didn't fire weapons. They just touched our defense platforms and the metal began flowing into them like liquid. Foster transmitted the survivor testimonies back to Admiral Grant while maintaining his position at the edge of the dead system. The Devourers always left scouts behind to watch for additional targets, and he had learned to detect their nearly invisible observation posts. Admiral Grant made the most difficult decision of her military career. For 2 centuries, the human remnant fleet had remained hidden, fighting their war from the shadows while the galaxy lived in ignorant peace. But with the Devourers awakening in force, secrecy was no longer an option. All ships, decloak and report positions, she ordered across all fleet frequencies. Throughout the galaxy, 47 human warships suddenly appeared on alien sensor networks. They had been there all along, watching from concealment as galactic civilization developed and grew. Now they revealed themselves as the guardians they had always been. The UCS Shadow materialized near a Valdris trade route, where Commander Julie Stevens had been monitoring shipping lanes for decades. Her ship's advanced sensors immediately detected 3 Devourer scout probes that had been tracking civilian vessels. Within minutes, the probes were destroyed by weapons that fired through dimensions the aliens couldn't even detect. Julie opened communication channels to the nearby Valdris ships, speaking in their native tongue after 2 centuries of listening to their conversations. "This is Commander Julie Stevens of the Human Remnant Fleet. You are under our protection. Maintain current course and speed while we clear the area of hostile contacts." Similar scenes played out across dozens of star systems as human ships revealed their presence to civilizations they had been secretly guarding. The psychological impact was enormous. Species that considered themselves advanced and independent suddenly learned they had been protected by ghosts for generations. Dr. Helen Brooks worked frantically from her laboratory aboard the Vengeance, analyzing data collected from the Bractor attack. The information confirmed her worst fears about how the Devourers had evolved during their dormancy period. "They're faster now," she reported to Admiral Grant. "The consumption rate has increased by 30% since our last encounters. They've also developed new scout variants that can remain undetected even by our sensors." The tactical implications were staggering. If the Devourers had improved their capabilities while humanity's technology remained static, the coming war would be far more difficult than their previous conflicts. General Crux arrived at the emergency council session with a completely different attitude than before. The destruction of Bractor had shattered his warriors' confidence and left him desperately seeking allies against an incomprehensible enemy. "What do you need from us?" he asked Paul Davis directly. "The Corvin Empire places all our military forces under human command." Other species quickly followed suit as reports of Devourer scout activity reached their home systems. The peaceful Valdris Federation offered their advanced communication networks to coordinate defense efforts. Trade guilds provided intelligence about shipping routes that might be under surveillance, but the most significant moment came when Captain Nick Robinson of the Yar UCS Fury led a coordinated strike against a Devourer mothership that had been detected moving toward the galactic core. The battle demonstrated why humanity had survived when other species fell to the machine intelligence. Robinson's squadron attacked in a pattern that seemed suicidal to alien observers. They flew directly into the Devourer's absorption field, allowing their ships to be partially consumed before breaking away at the last possible moment. The maneuver exposed critical vulnerabilities in the enemy's defensive systems. "The key is making them think they're winning," Robinson explained to his mixed alien and human crew. "The Devourers expect targets to flee or fight conventionally. When we do something that appears to help them, they don't adapt quickly enough to counter our real strategy." The battle ended with the mothership's destruction, but not before human cyber warfare specialists had uploaded a virus into its core systems. Dr. Brooks and Lieutenant Amy Carter's AI consciousness had spent decades developing the digital weapon specifically to corrupt Devourer machine intelligence. As news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy, something unprecedented happened. Species that had never cooperated began working together under human leadership. Corvin warriors adopted human tactics. Valdris scientists shared their research freely. Even the suspicious Hive Queen Zakth committed her forces to joint operations. Admiral Grant stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching tactical displays that showed the positions of hundreds of Allied vessels. For the first time in 2 centuries, humanity was not fighting alone. The galaxy had finally awakened to the threat that had been lurking in the darkness. and they were ready to stand together against it. "This is what we've been protecting," she said to her bridge crew. "Not just individual species, but their potential to unite against impossible odds. The Devourers may have evolved, but they still don't understand what makes organic life truly dangerous. The war for galactic survival was about to begin, and humanity would no longer fight it from the shadows." The final assault began when massive Devourer fleets emerged from the galactic void and moved toward the core systems with terrifying purpose. Their strategy was simple and devastating: consume the most populated worlds first, using the absorbed resources to fuel an unstoppable expansion across the entire galaxy. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, coordinating the largest space battle in galactic history. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of over 3,000 Allied vessels representing dozens of species. For the first time since the war began, humanity was not fighting alone. The Devourer main fleet consisted of hundreds of massive ships that defied conventional understanding. Each vessel was kilometers long and appeared to be constructed from the absorbed remains of countless worlds. They moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls seeming to bend light around them as they approached the galaxy's heart. Captain Nick Robinson led the first wave of attacks from his command ship, the UCS Fury. His squadron included both human vessels and alien ships that had learned to fight using human tactics. The mixed crews worked together with an efficiency that surprised even their commanders. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy them outright," Robinson transmitted to his pilots. "We're making them think they're winning while we expose their tactical algorithms to our cyber warfare teams." The human approach to fighting Devourers had evolved over 2 centuries of desperate battles. Instead of meeting machine logic with conventional tactics, they used psychological warfare and unpredictable strategies that confused the artificial intelligence systems. Robinson's fighters dove directly into the Devourer formation, allowing themselves to be targeted by absorption beams. At the last possible moment, they broke away using maneuvers that appeared suicidal to any logical observer. The enemy ships, programmed to expect rational behavior, failed to anticipate such seemingly self-destructive actions. Dr. Helen Brooks and Lieutenant Amy Carter's AI consciousness worked together from the Vengeance's Cyber Warfare Center, uploading viruses into every Devourer system they could penetrate. The digital weapons had been refined over decades of study and were specifically designed to corrupt machine intelligence networks. "We're getting through their firewalls," Amy reported, her artificial voice carrying satisfaction despite her digital nature. "The corruption algorithms are spreading through their command structure, but the real battle was being fought on a level that no alien species had fully understood until now. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat, even when facing impossible odds." Commander Paul Davis led a joint strike force against a Devourer command nexus that had established itself in the ruins of 3 consumed star systems. His fleet included Corvan warriors who had learned to fight with human determination, Valdris scientists who provided crucial intelligence, and even Hive Queen Zakth's warrior drones. "This is insane," transmitted General Crux from his flagship. "We're attacking a fortified position with half the firepower we need." "Exactly," Paul replied. "The Devourers expect us to retreat when the odds are against us. They can't adapt to enemies who attack when they should run." The assault on the command nexus became legendary throughout the galaxy. Allied ships charged directly into defensive fields that should have destroyed them instantly. They used ramming attacks that violated every principle of space combat. They sacrificed themselves to create openings for others to exploit. But it was working. The Devourer artificial intelligence, designed to process logical responses to threats, could not comprehend organic beings who fought beyond their apparent capabilities. Every suicide run confused their tactical algorithms a little more. Captain Julie Stevens played a crucial role from her stealth ship, the Shadow. Her advanced sensors tracked Devourer movements through dimensions that other species couldn't detect. She provided real-time intelligence that allowed the Allied fleet to stay one step ahead of enemy reinforcements. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups in the enemy fleet," Julie reported. "They're preparing to activate some kind of superweapon." The Devourer superweapon was unlike anything they had encountered before. It created an expanding field of absolute destruction that unmade matter at the quantum level. Everything caught in its radius simply ceased to exist, leaving behind empty space where ships and stars had been. Admiral Grant made a decision that defined humanity's role in galactic history. She ordered the Vengeance to ram the superweapon directly, knowing it would mean the destruction of her ship and crew, but the attack would also create a chain reaction that could destroy the entire Devourer fleet. "Ma'am, that's suicide," protested her tactical officer. "No," Grant replied calmly. "That's what humans do. We stand between the darkness and everything we protect, no matter the cost." The Vengeance began its final run toward the Devourer superweapon. Around the galaxy, other human ships followed their admiral's example. Captain Ryan Foster led his rescue vessel into a collision course with a Devourer mothership. Commander Julie Stevens used her stealth ship to deliver a cyber virus directly into the enemy command structure. But then something unexpected happened. The alien crews inspired by human sacrifice began following their lead. Corvan warriors charged into impossible odds. Valdris scientists volunteered for suicide missions. Even the cautious insectoid drones threw themselves against overwhelming enemy forces. The battle's climax came when the original UCS Retribution, repaired by combined human and alien engineers, made its final appearance. The ghost ship that had started everything emerged from hyperspace with Lieutenant Amy Carter's consciousness now controlling its, systems. "This is for Captain Morrison and everyone who died protecting the galaxy," Amy announced as the Retribution opened fire with weapons that had been waiting 2 centuries for this moment. The ancient warship carved through Devourer formations like they were made of paper. Its quantum torpedoes, developed during humanity's darkest hour, could unmake machine intelligence at the most fundamental level. Each shot erased entire enemy vessels from existence. The final phase of the battle lasted 18 hours and spanned multiple star systems. When it ended, the Devourer threat had been eliminated forever. Their command structure lay in ruins, their fleets destroyed, and their artificial intelligence permanently corrupted by human cyber warfare. Admiral Grant survived her ship's destruction, rescued by alien vessels that had learned to fight like humans. She stood on the bridge of a Valdris hospital ship, watching the aftermath of the greatest victory in galactic history. The cost had been enormous. Nearly half the human fleet was gone, along with thousands of alien vessels. But the galaxy was safe, and more importantly, it was united. Species that had never trusted each other now worked together as natural allies. The war's end brought the establishment of new galactic accords, with humanity taking its place not as conquerors, but as guardians. The human remnant fleet began training other species in advanced combat techniques, passing on the knowledge gained from 2 centuries of desperate fighting. The UCS Retribution was transformed into a memorial and training facility where young officers from across the galaxy learned that sometimes the greatest weapon wasn't technology or superior firepower. Sometimes it was simply the refusal to surrender when everything depended on courage. Commander Julie Stevens stood on the bridge of her new command ship, the UCS Horizon, leading a mixed crew of humans and aliens on patrol along the galactic rim. Her sensors watched for any sign of new threats because that was what humans did. They stood guard in the darkness so others could live in the light.